Hey guys, welcome into another Maymay Made It episode. Today's episode is a requested episode. When I was doing my craftery must-haves, I talked about the fact that the Martha Stewart scoreboard has on the back of it a template for making envelopes. And I mentioned that maybe one day I would do that. And someone requested, I don't remember who now, I'm sorry, but someone requested that I would show that envelope feature on the scoreboard. So this is what the envelope looks like when you make it. And I probably should have used a less ornate paper to show you on video, but I'm going to try really hard to show you how it works. But it's real simple, and I do a couple of tweaks, but I'm going to show you those tweaks as we get going. So the first thing you're going to need to get started is going to be an 8. Well, I take that back. I don't even want to start there. We're going to go this way first. The first thing you'll need is your Martha Stewart scoreboard. Now, the scoreboard, if you purchase this particular model that has little pop up in the top that holds the bone folder that comes with it and all that good stuff. This one, I'm going to flip it over, and it's kind of hard in this camera angle for you to get to see me flipping it over, but when I flip it, you can see right down here, it has a template. I gotta be honest with you, when I bought this the first time, I did not know this was here. So, I saw this, but I didn't know it had this little storage spot. So be sure that you look on the back of yours and see if you have that storage spot, because I was thinking, what am I going to do with this? But that's pretty neat, because I guess Martha, she thinks of everything, right? So I'm going to turn this back over. And the way we do this with the tool is it sits in this crease in the side. So let me make sure I stay in the screen for you guys. It sits in this crease. I'm even going to back out a little bit. And you're going to see stuff on my desk, and that's all right, because I want you to be able to see the entire board. But so you're going to place this into the corner here at 0, and it's just going to sit, and it's going to change the direction to a diagonal here whenever you put your paper in. Now, the cool part, at the top, you can see envelopes for dimensional cards. Now, this is important. Envelopes for dimensional cards. These are going to be cards where we're putting our little lifts and our little dimensional pieces and our foam tape and all that. These envelopes are created in such a way that they have a give to allow for that. That's important, because if you try to allow for that, you're going to have too big of an envelope. So envelopes for dimensional cards. These are standard envelope sizes as well. I have made cards in the past, and using these basic measurements, I have extended them to be the envelope size I need. So you can do that once you learn how to do this. But to start with today, I want to show you that there's a number 1, a 4-bar, an A2, A6, A7, A9, and it says 6-inch square, and then a number 10. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different envelopes you can make using this template, or at least this tool. I thought for us today, I would do an A2. That's pretty common. That's pretty much what we use all the time. To do A2, and I know you're kind of far away for this, but it does say it. Matter of fact, let me lift it up to let you guys see that. If you can, see all the little lines? That's where they're broken down for you. To do an A2 envelope, you're going to need an 8.5 by 8.5 piece of paper, and then it tells you where to do your score marks. Now, it's an 8.5 by 8.5 piece of paper. The piece that I have today is an 8 by 8. So I won't actually be able to use this for an A2 card, but I'm going to show you using this because it's just kind of a piece I had laying around. So this is an 8 by 8, like I said, and this envelope turned out pretty good size. I mean, I can use it for something. It just won't be exactly for my A2 card. And that's a cool thing too. If you're making cards that are different or interesting, that are different sizes or shapes, it'll work for you to be able to change the sizes. Now, if you notice that I told you this was envelopes for dimensional cards, here it says, to make envelopes for flat cards, decrease the length and width of the starting paper size by 1/8 and score normally. So if you don't need the dimension, if you don't need the extra give, you're just going to make your paper smaller by 1/8. Now, this diagram is where we learn how to do this. I'm going to bring you in closer for this part. I say that and I always go backwards. Okay. This diagram is what we'll be using. And this diagram is marked A on this side, B on this side. So you're going to be making 4 different marks. Let me get that closer. A, both sides, B, both sides. So that's how you're going to be judging how your card works. Or how your envelope works. So I took my paper, and it would be 8.5 by 8.5 for an A2 card. Mine is 8 by 8. Now I've also noticed if I just do this, if I push, sometimes if this point goes under, I'll show you, if this point drops down, then my paper goes into the, you can see how my paper disappeared. That's not good. Here's what I do. I put my finger on this front edge and the back edge so I can still see my diagram. And then I put my paper to it. That way it doesn't slide underneath the little triangle piece that's there. Now then, if you go back to your reference at the top, we know we're doing an A2. Our paper's 8.5 by 8.5, and it tells us to score the A lines at 3 inches. Now, to do that, hold that paper in place, pushing down so it doesn't fall under. My A line is here, so I'm going to press, or I'm going to score 3 inches in. Pretty simple. Now then, I'm going to turn this completely around. I'm going to turn it once, twice, so that now I'm working on my other A side. You can just do the measure and just the measurement and measure in 3 inches, but this is how I like to do it. So I turn it twice. So now I've done this A side, and now I'm going to go to the 3-inch mark and score this A side. And I always like to do 2. You don't have to do 2, but I like to. Now I'm going to turn it one time. I've done both my A sides. So I've done this side and this side. Turning it one time, it's now time to do the B line. And B, if I look up at my measurement, B needs to be done at 3 5/8. So I go back to my 3-inch mark where I know where that was earlier, and I move up 5/8 right here. And I score a couple of times. Again, I'm going to turn it twice. Once, twice. Do my other B side, 3 5/8. And we're scored. Now, you're through with this triangle piece at this point. We've done all we need to do with it. Now, for demonstration purposes, I want to show you demonstration purposes, I'm going to actually draw on the paper because I don't think you can see it very well where you are. So, okay. I'm going to draw. Once you have scored this, you'll see there's little triangles that are formed on the little edges here. This paper is really hard to see it, so that's where I'm going to draw it. The score lines cross over in the corners. This is one that crossed over. This is another one. I'm just drawing on the score lines to show you so you can see it on the video. Score lines. Score lines. So that's where the lines cross over. So you can see the shape on the inside. At this point, what you're going to do is take your scissors, and I like to use my smaller precision scissors for this, and you're going to cut to the point where those score lines meet, which is here and here. I've told y'all before I'm a shaker, so this is a little more difficult for me than probably for you. I have to hold everything very still. So we're taking these notches out. Now on your card, you won't see the black edges because you won't have to do that. You'll be able to see that whenever you do it yourself. Now, all we have to do is, one more thing that I added. I forgot about this. I do this, it doesn't tell you to do this, but this worked really well for me earlier when I was doing the sample, and I thought, I don't really like the way that looks, so I want to change it. What I want to do is take the wider of the two, which would be the B side. These are our A's, these are our B's, and I'll show you. The A's are smaller, the B's are wider. I'm going to take one of the B sides and put it back into our triangle, into our piece. And I'm going to score this at 1 inch. And I will show you why whenever we do the folding part, but I'm going to go ahead and start. So I did one B side scored at 1 inch. This is just my technique, so I'm just showing you that. Okay, now what you want to do is just fold your score lines. Fold and score. Doesn't matter what order. Now I've got it all scored and you can see the shape. Now this is the end where I did the 1 inch score line right along the end, and I can see that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim that away, and I'll show you why in a moment. So the reason I trim that away is if I didn't, I'm going to lay this up here, we're just going to pretend like this is not there. If I didn't, when I folded my pieces inward and then I folded this piece up, I would end up with this point that kind of extends in a funny way, and I don't really like that. That's on there. You can do a lot of things. You can round this or tuck it or whatever. I just find that if I score it 1 inch in, it ends up better. I'll show you what I mean. When I lay these down and then I bring this one in this time, which I clearly did not score that one very well. Now I have a nice, neat, clean square, no point, just from doing that. So for adhesive, as you notice, you have plenty of room to put your adhesive here. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to use my ATG gun for this. I'm just going to put adhesive on these edges. And you really don't need any more adhesive because this will really hold this down for you just fine. I'm just going to close that up. So you're almost through. Now remember, you won't have these little black spots that are on mine because you won't have to use that. You'll be able to see it. Now the only other thing I like to do, there's a couple things. Number one, I'm not real fond of this pointy tip that shows. I like this to be a little more neat. So what I do is I take my corner rounder, put this point into my corner rounder, cut it off, and then I just kind of like the look of that better. It's a little more neat, a little more clean, it's rounded. And you'll probably be able to see this better in the pictures because I use such a busy piece of paper. Now the other thing I like to do, kind of hard to see, but this edge kind of overlaps a little bit, and it pretty much does that no matter how I've done it. I've always got some little edge showing. So what I like to do is take my scissors again, and you just freehand this. This is your envelope, and you know, you're making it for whatever, and if yours has a little freehand edge like this, it just does. And nobody will notice that. That is kind of splitting hairs. You really didn't even have to do that, but that's how you make the envelope. It's very simple. I think it's intimidating. I think oddly it's intimidating because this little piece and all the measurements and all the things, but once you really break it down and look at it, it's pretty simple, and that's how you do it. So there's our envelope. You just place a card or a goodie or anything inside there, and you're all set and ready to go. The cool thing too, I want to mention to you, using these double-sided designer papers like this, your inside is already pretty, but you can line that. It's real simple to line it. And maybe one day I'll show you that in a tutorial, but for now, that's the envelope, and I hope that helped you guys make your envelope with the envelope tool with the Martha Stewart cutting board. Y'all have a good one, and Merry Christmas.